What's up, everyone? It's your boy Brian Duarte. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Tactics. And today we have a special episode prepared for you because we're going to look into the future and we're going to look into the past. We're going to look at Manchester City and their defensive issues, their pressing issues, because they lost their last two games against Brighton and against Spurs, and they have an upcoming Manchester derby against United, obviously, at the Etihad. So that's a game that they want to win. United, they just won against Burnley, so they're trying to get 6 points out of 6. So it's going to be very interesting to see how both managers also are going to shape up. Because if you look at the Spurs game, especially because that was for me the blueprint on how you want to beat City this year, I hope that Ruben Amorim, as a United fan, is going to take on those ideas. I'm not sure, but also with the system that he uses, they might cause some issues for Manchester City. But let's just focus on Man City's defensive issues, on how they want to press. And it's just not looking good, because if you look at the games that when they played against Brighton and when they played against Spurs, they conceded 2 goals who are very similar. And I think Spurs could have scored more goals if they were a bit better on the ball. But let's just look at the first clip, because this clip is going to explain everything for the rest of the video. So let's just dive into it straight away. So I've got the tactical footage here from Man City against Spurs. And what happens in the first situation? The ball gets played to Vicario, and then let's just freeze it. On paper, Spurs had the 4-2-3-1, but when you looked at the game, they played the 4-2-4. And we're just going to go over some few things as to why the 4-2-4 was so effective against Manchester City. And the first reason of the 4-2-4 is the front four. You had Kudus, Sarr, Richarlison and Brennan Johnson playing very high, very wide. So making sure that you stretch the back four of Manchester City and keep them as high as possible so that they cannot jump the press and cannot go forward. And then you had 2 players in midfield, Palhinha and Bentancur, who are really more decoys, but they were allowed to drop into the back too sometimes to create to help build up play. And then you had 2 fullbacks with Porro and Spence playing high and making sure that they can create an overload with the fullback against Manchester City. And then you had Romero and Van de Ven with Vicario obviously at the back defending. And in this situation, Vicario is your third centre back, but throughout the game sometimes you had Palhinha or Bentancur dropping in to create an overload there. And if you go to Manchester City, they went to your 4-1-4-1 defensive formation. So they had their back four. In this game, it was Nico Gonzalez in front of the defense, and then you had your 2 attacking midfielders with Reinders and Shirky. You had your 2 wingers with Marmoush and Bob, and then obviously your striker was Haaland. And that's how City tried to press. But something that you need to remember for the rest of the video is City played with 1 defensive midfielder, which is very important if you go later on in the video. So one of the key issues was with this 4-2-4 is, like I said, you stretch the backline, you pin the backline, so it's harder for the fullbacks to press. And in this situation, Spurs always had a spare man. If they were patient on the ball and they were good enough on the ball, they always had a spare man either in Porro or in Jet Spence. And in this situation, it's going to be Spence. Why? Because you're going to see that Rico Lewis wants to step out and press Jet Spence, but he can't do it because of the positioning of Brennan Johnson. So he cannot step out, so he has to stay in position, and that allows more time and space for Spence to receive the ball. Here Van de Ven has to find him, doesn't do it, resets the play again to Bentancur, to Palhinha. Palhinha then now plays it into Romero back to Vicario, and now Vicario is going to look for Spence. And this is the first mistake, and let's just pause it here. First mistake that Rico Lewis makes is he's going to step out and press Jet Spence. And in this situation, if Spence has enough time and is better on the ball, he can maybe find a pass into Richarlison. Maybe he can find Brennan Johnson down the line. He comes out, it's late, so it's just because of the touch that Spence, because of the bad touch that Spence takes, that he can press. But if he's way too late, so he cannot press there. Spence loses the ball, so okay, cool. Next situation. Here, Vicario has the ball, and this is a situation. Bentancur comes into the ball, creates a triangle. Here, Romero turns out. Like I said, you have a spare man either in Porro or Spence at all times. If Romero turns out, plays it into Porro, Porro can then drive in and has then 20-25 yards to drive into. Okay, doesn't do it. Finds Bentancur. Bentancur, if his pass is better again in front of Porro, he can take the touch and come out. Bentancur makes a good run in behind, so he makes up for it. And this is how Spurs try to beat City the whole time, is opposite movement. Look at how high City are playing against the halfway line, And with two movements, one movement of the wingers coming short and one movement of the strikers coming in behind, they're trying to dismantle Man City's defensive backline. And you can see here also, because of how Nico Gonzalez senses the space, let's say Bentancur takes a touch and passes it into Richarlison, he can come here into the space because it's like 20 to 30 yards just free for him. But the idea of Spurs was, can we play in behind? Can we make sure that we beat City's high line? And again, like I said, Kudus comes short. The passing behind wants to be played to Sarr. He's offside right now, but it's about the idea. Sometimes you just have to look at the idea. The idea was there, playing behind, offside. But again, Spurs, they know what they wanted to do. Next situation, City make the sub. Aït-Nouri comes off and Ake comes on. Spurs, they get into their build-up shape, 4-4. This is the best picture you can have throughout the whole game. They start up, and you can see now in this situation, because of the sub, Nico Gonzalez was already playing in the back four, but he stays there, and this allows actually for Rico Lewis to start a bit higher and make sure that he presses jet spin. So he does that. He's already making sure that he can press jet spins. Spence is now under pressure, has a bit of time because Rico Lewis stands too low and is too late. In this situation, he also leaves a gap of 25 to 30 yards in behind. And normally City would fix that with, like I said, with their defensive midfielders in front of defense, making sure that he covers those spaces. But because Nico Gonzalez is already playing as a central defender in this situation, and he's already being pinned by Richarlison, and he cannot step out because then he will leave Richarlison free. This means Spence has time to find the pass into midfield. Good holo play from Richarlison, finds the player, and then again, runners in behind. You can see here, if we pause it, 4 runners from Spurs, with obviously Jet Spence coming in from the left side. They find it. A very good pass here. If you have a better touch, you're in the box and maybe have a chance to score. And then the next situation just describes how the game went for Spurs. They find the spare man on either side. This time is Pedro Porro, has time again. The press from Marmoush is too weak, is too flat-footed, it's not aggressive enough. Again, the movement on the top hand side, you can see here that Kudus is gonna come short. That makes space and time for Sarr to run into. Runs into it, wins the header. Again, runners, and then what Spurs do very well in this game is make sure that back post is always covered. Brennan Johnson comes late and scores here. 1-0 for Spurs. Great idea, and it worked. And then we go to the next game where City lost. And again, the idea was the same, only the biggest difference was with Brighton. They switched sometimes from either creating a box in midfield with the 2 strikers coming into midfield and creating a box there, or they played super high and wide, like in this situation, with their 2 wingers high and wide, the strikers high and wide, stretch the pitch as big as possible, and again create either space in midfield or space down the flanks. Here it happens again. They get played, and then the number 10 for Brighton had the instruction to create an overload on either side. So you have to create an overload on the right hand side. Now he's going to shuffle across the left hand side. Again, same movement as Spurs did before. One player comes into space. That means there's going to be space in behind to run into. Here, good interception by Rodri. But again, the idea is there. And then if you go further to the next clip later on into the game as well, you can see here, drawing the press. And this is the biggest mistake Rico Lewis made. And I get it why he does it. Like I said, 10 has a license to come either side to create an overload. So he has to press, or he feels like he has to press one of the midfielders from Brighton. But this, and then just look at the picture, just look at Pep at the bottom of the screen. He now already identifies that if you step out there, you're going to leave your winger free. Even the manager is saying from Brighton, we have one man very free and alone. He has identified that, finds the pass in behind. Good interception, actually. Second ball, and then Premier League, you get killed when you leave those spaces in behind. Pass, very good pass. One from the goalkeeper. Composure, great finish. 1-0 goal for Brighton. And again, as we saw with both goals, City's fullback can't press. Either when he presses, he's either too late, or he can't press because he's being pinned. So that leaves either space in midfield or space in behind. In this situation, again, they leave the space in behind and they just get punished. So in this clip, we're going to look at how Spurs always try to make a 2v1 situation against the fullbacks of Manchester City. Like I said, they always had a spare man on either side. So here again, they're going to find it. Rico Lewis is going to step out. It's going to be too late. 1v1 with Jet Spence. And here, if he plays a clever pass, he can play Brennan Johnson through. Doesn't do it. Waits for the 1-2. Overload's created on one side. That means there's going to be 1-3. We're going to see here Kudus takes a touch. And if you're going to pause it right here, 2v1. Can Kudus be more positive? Can you find Porro there in behind? But okay, doesn't do it. But again, the idea is there. Same thing here. They play through the press. They find Kudus. Overload on one side. So that means the other side is going to be free. Palhinha finds it. Finds the pass into Brennan Johnson. And then if you pause it here, 2v1. Jet Spence again to the fullback. Finds him. He's being positive. 1v1. Looking for it. Looking for it. Can't find the gap. Okay, let's play it out. And again, an opportunity for Spurs to shoot or head on goal. Not that dangerous, but again, the idea is there. Here, goal kick, Manchester City, same thing again. Spurs, they're going to win it. They're going to reset the ball. Draw in the press, back to the goalkeeper. And then here, and this is something that never happens with City, the front four is moving forward. The back four is pinned because of the front four of Spurs. And the midfield too has no idea. Do we step? Do we drop? They have no idea. So they drop while the front four is going forward. So if your front four is going forward, that means your midfield has to follow. And your centre backs has to follow as well. Or your back four has to follow. Doesn't do that. One of the biggest rules in football. That means Bentancur here with a better touch can play out. Maybe find Porro on the right hand side. But receives the ball. Can turn under pressure again. Keeps the ball, almost loses it. Here again, finds Jet Spence. And Jet Spence, who's right-footed, tries to switch the play. But again, a lot of issues from City. Their press wasn't at the right time. The spaces from your back line into your midfield line into your front line was always too big. The midfield two or the midfielder didn't know if he had to press or stay back. So it was a lot of spaces. And this is something that Man City never do. But it happened so many times against Spurs. And here again, same thing, same idea for Brighton again. They're going to look for the spare man. Finds it here in midfield. Overload on one side. That means the opposite side is free. And here again, if the fullback runs a bit more, you have your 2v1 situation. And I think now, and that's why I looked at United as well. There's a few things that United do on the ball that I think they can beat Manchester City with. So how, and we're going to look at the clip right now, how United build up is with their goalkeeper always coming in as a third centre back. That allows Matthijs de Ligt to come into midfield and play next to Casemiro, which then liberates Bruno to play in his number 10 position. So United actually play with a 4-2-3-1 on the ball when they play from build up, only from the goal kick. When it's in open play, so when the ball's a bit higher, they go back to the usual back three and then they have different sets of play. But when United want to build up from goal kick, the league always comes to midfield. And I think these are the ways how they can hurt City with Buemo either playing, coming into the ball, Cunha as well. Two players, and I understand why they bought Cunha and Buemo. Players that can come into the ball and receive the ball back to goal, but also can stretch the pitch and go in behind. And we're going to see that in those clips. And then also the movement of Bruno, making sure that he can also come into the ball, but also go in behind. And he has elite passing abilities. Just makes a lot of sense on how United want to play. Here, a bit of a lucky touch for Mason Mount. But again, the idea is there. And then look, Buemo again on your bike. Pinning the back line of Arsenal. 1v1 with the goalkeeper. Okay, can't score, but the idea is there again. Here, open play. Matthijs de Ligt is back in his centre-back position. Here, Dalot is going to find the pass into Cunha. And if this pass connects to Buemo, they're gone and free on goal. Okay, he gets fouled. But again, the idea is there on how United want to play, on how they want to beat Arsenal's backline, and how I think they're going to beat Man City's backline. Same thing again. United already conceded the goal. And like I said before, City play with 1-6. So that means right now Bruno has to be on Rodri or Nico Gonzalez. He makes the run in midfield, Bruno. He's going to lose Rodri by now. And then if you can find this pass again into the back line, and United, they play, if you pause it right now, 3 centre backs, you have your wing backs, and then you have 1 in midfield, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 5 players pushing that back line of City against 4 centre-backs. So that means Rodri has to drop in deeper. So that's going to create space either between the defensive line and the midfield line, or he has to stay in that position and then leave the space in behind. Here, if you can find Bruno, again, it gets fouled. But again, it's the run, is the intention, is what do you want to do. And then again, here you see here, Buemo coming short, doesn't receive it, goes in behind. He can do both. Create space again for someone else maybe to come in. United, they don't do that. They reset that. And then this is something you can see here. De Ligt is coming wider. Casemiro stays in this position. And that makes the pass on for Bruno. And then you have someone, like I said, with elite passing abilities in behind. Can you find Buemo? Great touch to Cunha. Cunha then comes inside, takes a shot. And again, the idea is there. Later on in the game, same thing. This time, United, they're going to draw in the press a little bit. Plays in behind. Great touch from Bruno. And again, runners. And this is how I feel and I believe that United can beat Manchester City with the players that they have available and with the system, with your third centre-back dropping in like Spurs did sometimes, and also with someone sometimes pushing up, coming into the half space and then spinning in behind. And then this is the last situation. It doesn't reach, but it's again someone strong on the ball, doesn't win the header, but again, that run in behind, and then they try to score. So this is my conclusion for the Manchester derby. My analysis on Manchester City's backline. So they have issues with jumping with their fullbacks. They have issues with their backline and their midfield line. Can they eliminate those spaces? Can they make those spaces smaller? So yeah, if you like this video, make sure you like. I've done about 20 takes. The last take was actually a good take, and then I forgot to press record. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure you smash a like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a comment, make sure you share it with people that you might think are into tactics, and I'll make sure I'll do another analysis very soon. But yeah, it's your boy Brian Duarte, and this was Let's Talk Tactics, and I'll see you another time. Bye.